podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother, Justice Rajee.
All right, so, here we are, about to add on, discuss various things, you know what I'm saying? It was a countdown, like space, you know what I'm saying?
That was wild.
So, we gonna jump in at, what I think is probably, I'm gonna start out here just so there's no misunderstanding. I think one of the most salient snapshots, and whether he had the presence of mind to realize where the world would be in April of 2025, to do something that, to me, as a piece of creative expression, captures so much about being Black, America, value systems, religion and culture, economic structures, the whole kit and caboodle of the American thing, and vampires. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All in one movie. And what we're going to start off with, and I think here is talking about Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan, with, I'm not going to run down the whole cast because I don't got everybody's names written down right now, but really unbelievable performances by a whole bunch of folks. I think, so I have some different entry points. We're not going to be able to talk about every single thing in the movie, but I think the timing and the context are big points to me that I want to get to, but I wanted to open up and just say, like, what's your first hit? You know what I mean? When you start thinking about this movie.
Well, first, I don't like vampire movies. No. So the fact that I actually watched a 2.5-hour movie that did not include the Mafia was saying something. Mafia wasn't in it. George Clooney wasn't in it. That's usually what I watch for 2.5 hours. But I'm saying that somewhat in jest, but really like taking this idea of something that we know is a hit, like, people like to go watch vampire movies, but then you actually do a pretty interesting breakdown of Black society, post-World War I, blues music, racial relationships in the South, a whole host of things, right? And then you put it with a vampire movie, right? Like, you know what I mean? And like, right. You put it together, and for some reason, it actually works. Like, that idea is a mashup from hell. Like, if you tried to like tell me I would watch it, I would like, no, I'm not watching this. Yeah. But like, I watched it and I enjoyed it. So that's part of it. Like, that I would say the whole was actually greater than some of its parts. And you don't see that in a lot of movies. Yeah. You don't really see that feel.
Yeah. And I guess I probably could have started with this. The blues as sometimes characterized as a marriage between the righteous and the profane. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like the circumstances of the movie and to me, I will be 50 years old, you know what I mean? As long as things stick to the schedule, you know what I'm saying? In the next year.
Fully expect you to be 50 years old.
Your brother. Got me wilding out here in the streets, man.
One of your support teams,
America. I might
jump out. To get to 50.
Ready to get there though. So
we got parties to go to.
Indeed, you know what I'm saying, we got a lot of good stuff to do. So but the longer I go, is like layers of being Black, of being us, right? Of being the, if you don't like the term black, being African American, if you don't like African American, being the beings who have experienced the world as we have experienced it, especially the deeper you get to understand your own folks. You say we always talk about understanding your origin in this world, right? Like, how did you get here? And to capture like challenging stuff, we typically get a period piece movie. America's primary orientation, American movie making apparatus, is to get to a place of showing how bad it is for us. But within the context of how bad it is for us is this level, usually this helplessness or this sadness, or that you're defined strictly by how bad it is for us, as opposed to being defined how you make and show and develop your own agency within your context, right? So you start out with these characters, and characters, knowing my own family history, I can relate to. Army vets that have returned from serving in the military to the world that they was in, and realizing even if they don't have all the answers, they can no longer return to that other life. Whatever it was before I went and served and fought and did all these, did these other things. You get the context that the twins, and we got to talk about the twins in communities. You get the relationships between people. And these are just notions that were sticking out to me. The reality that we've maybe have lost at this age, and is maybe somewhere in the root of the weird relationship conversations we have now, that it was a understood, struggled with idea that often in life people were maybe not with the person they actually liked the most, but the person they had to kind of deal with based on the context of their circumstances. Or some shit happened and you lost a baby, or got into something and you had to flee town, and you really love them, but you can't be there no more. Like these sorts of dynamics. You get the sabotage, you know what I'm saying, of the white man that sells them the spot, right? And then they like, there's something suspicious about this. They saying this was a sawmill, but this shit don't seem like no motherfucking sawmill. Like, fuck going on in here? You know what I'm saying? You get the Choctaw brothers, you know what I'm saying, where they be like, yo, that dude that's in the crib with y'all.
I want to touch on that real quick.
Yeah,
because I think that was important and underplayed, and I think that's part of. I know we'll get to a bigger picture, but I think that was like, I'm really looking forward to seeing the director's cut when the Choctaws are fleshed out about being vampire hunters.
Yeah,
right, like, you know what I'm saying. But like in their case, they was like, yo, you should let us in there. You don't want to let us in? Gotta go. Like, we want to help you solve your problem, but you don't want me to help you solve what I know is your problem in that house? Then I'm out. Right. And even that idea, this kind of multicultural mosaic, right? Because I think, we often talk about the difference between a melting pot, which makes everybody the same, which is America, right? And our Canadian brothers and sisters who say that they are a mosaic, where you put everyone in the same painting, but they contain some of who they are, right? And so I just think, like the fact of like the vampire hunters that kind of like, all right,
I mean,
I'm about to go down, Jack. So,
right. And they looked at each other like, man, they on their own. We going back. But then the idea that like some of our community, and especially in this current moment of people's lack of historical analysis, don't realize that, brothers from the Choctaw community, dressed in the fashion that they were, moving through the land in the way that they were, was not a thing that was not real. Like this, it was not a thing of fantasy and mystery. The way that the movie gave you that snapshot of the town, right? I'm happy for people that have gone now and go, oh, there was Chinese merchants in the Delta in Mississippi, and you know what I mean, like, and making the like, I didn't think nobody that looked like that was nowhere near nothing face. The one that, even though there wasn't a defined like Latino character, if you see in one of the scenes, one of the storefronts is a tamale joint.
Tamale joint, that's right.
Right? And then some people who might just be, oh yeah, we sell tamales in the South. Where the fuck you think they came from? You big dummy? know what I'm saying? Like we so detached from like even our own people's histories, right? And our own stories, and like maybe you need to ask people. That sometimes, people again, they get on these flights of fancy. I ain't gonna go too into that because I get mad.
Well, the story, I think though, what you're talking about is part of the blues too. It's like, what are the stories that have existed and we no longer tell ourselves when we start to tell ourselves new stories, right? So we since we've gotten to the North and the West and maybe also the industrial South, right? So whether you were talking about Memphis, whether you're talking about what became Atlanta, you left the stories of Clarksdale, you left the stories of the Delta, right? Like people were literally going somewhere to be new people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then thinking about it, like over time, over when people don't tell the story because like the story doesn't sometimes match the new thing, right? So you leave out that you ate tamales. When, I mean, obviously we know, and there's a lot of research and a lot of great books around the role of, kind of Mexican communities in the South, the role of the Greek communities in the South, where you get E+3, right? Like these things are all there. But again, I think it's like we didn't tell the story and then we don't tell ourselves that story anymore unless we're also talking about like someone taking advantage that wasn't always the story. And this goes to agency. When you want to recognize white supremacy, you want to recognize racism, but also recognize that what was happening in the South with other people in our interactions were not always as clear cut as we may have liked them to be that fit our current narrative. So that's just what I think about the stories we tell ourselves and how we fit old stories into new narratives that sometimes don't fit us. So I even saw new stuff that, because they were framing the Asian family, the Chinese family in particular, because they were Chinese. They were framing them as like friends, right? And someone they had worked with and someone they were familiar with. And then I saw some shit on like internet, like, but here's the other side you didn't know. How the Asian Chinese, the Asian Southern population did not want to marry you. Like, you don't want to marry some people's family live down the street.
Right.
You don't even want to marry people.
You don't like the Johnsons and shit.
Listen, everyone in the Black community knows about good stock and bad stock. Right. In the conversations that Black people will have to say, oh, that person, they from good stock. Yeah, I like this. I like that happen. Or
I know you people. You good people. They good people. They good people.
You see what I'm saying? And so, again, how do you kind of deal with the narrative that doesn't fit your story today, but does fit the story that existed at that time, which I think is a good part of what this movie is making us kind of come to grips with.
Yeah, I've gone through. I mean, I've been impressed by Ryan Coogler's work, and even with folks mixed, everyone's got their opinions of various things, but there's something. There's a sense and understanding and a focus on Blackness and the creative process and an intentionality that, well, one, obviously it's not lost because he's doing it, right? Like we might go, oh, it's lost. Everyone's not doing it. It's like, no, it's not lost. Maybe not everyone having the same level of intentionality, but a clarity of the references, right? And for those that don't know some of the things that might be being referenced in the way he's creating this story, there's a good video there where you can find where basically it kind of points to how this matches references the century cycle. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
August Wilson. You know what I'm saying? You can point to how the story itself gives you again, it's a snapshot. It's a day. It's only a day in the life. You know what I'm saying? But it takes you through all of these factors, the conflict that exists sometimes, being us in this society, the push that you may have to like exist in the binary world of good, bad, up, down, left, right, and this world is like, it's some circumstances, there's some things happening. There's contextual factors, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe this was the right decision. Maybe it wasn't. Like, oh, we gotta kill all the vampires. Maybe we don't kill all the vampires. Are vampires really bad? Are they just vampires? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? My man Remick, for a minute there, Remick was spitting. Yeah, Remick had some points. You know what I mean? Now, dangerous points. It's gonna turn into vampires that eat people also, right? Like,
right.
That sort of challenge and I as we've talked about, like, where there's always a contrarian, amongst us. But I think the even if you think about the idea like black maybe, you know what I'm saying, where you're like, yeah, I don't know, guys. Like this maybe. I mean, we're gonna do this thing. That's the right thing, but let's not be too strident in why we're motivated to make this decision, because there's a situation that we're in that has brought us to some of these challenges and way we may approach the world, questions we may ask, why we do or don't do something, and trying to deal with that is a part of our life way, right? Is a part of how we engage and reason with the world that I think it's hard for either people who have not had like circumstances to actually grasp. Right. And then I think sometimes in efforts sometimes to be new people, we'll want to try to be like, no, there is no conflict. I'm now this type of person. And I go to, maybe I've go to this type of religion, and I do this type of living, and I dress this way, and I set myself up, and these are my new order. I'm not a part of that. Oh man, it's a little messy feeling anymore. And I can understand that, right? And then there's sometimes the other way that we might show up, where folks just go, I'm all the way in the mess, and there is no other, no cleaning it up.
Love the gray.
Let me go way deeper into the gray.
Can I touch on that? Well, touch on the kind of like the Irish and the decision points, which I think were interesting. Like, again, going back to this story and the story we tell ourselves versus the story that history tells. There's a lot of data that talks about when the Irish became white, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think, unless you are like, I only live for the day, I have no historical context. You don't have a context for, it was a space where the Irish were not white. Yeah. Right? America does a really good job of making everyone who is tangential to being white, right? Brings everybody in, even though they have different stuff. And because we define ourselves by the perception of skin color in this country so much, it's like, okay, well, they became white. They always been white. No, that wasn't the case. And when you talk about oppression and his almost like egalitarian vampire world of like, once you cross over here, we can all become the same, which, if you think about it, is not so far different from what you start to hear from Father Divine and certain itinerant Southern preachers, right? Itinerant, just general kind of like movement leaders that then ends up with Jim Jones.
Yep.
Right? It has its end game with Jim Jones. Not Jomo, not the rapper.
Right.
He's the oldest YN, right? Yeah. As y'all say. I think he's just, it's people saying stay on corners for a long time. And again, I'm not going to never act like that's not a part of our community. But dudes that stay on the corner a long time, whether they're rich or not. But I'm saying, like, if you're thinking about coming from the war, and then you get this, not just World War I, but also what starts to happen in America around 1914 with a whole bunch of charismatic preachers, right? Coming out of the Militarian movement that gave birth to the Jehovah's Witnesses and other things, right? So you get this, like, we can all be one. We can all, race is not a thing. So even that connection to understanding that can get away from this idea that, like, you didn't have those movements that did it, or that the Irish at a certain point were not oppressed, and you could not have Remnick saying that, right? And one more part that makes me think about, like, the Irish river dancing and its relationship to gangs in New York, right? And the whole story about, like, kind of tap dancing and the jig and all these kind of things, which were African in nature, but also brought in elements of the Irish dance. Right? That and being in New York. So you do have these things where people are picking up things from each other. So it provides all these kind of points of context for you to connect all in one movie, which is not easy to do. Right?
That's what makes it, I think, remarkable as a piece of creation, because we bring in the notions and because of who's making it, and then in the context, you go, oh snap, these are notions right. Of what the world is and means are in other movies, right? but they're they'll do like, well, it's just you got to save the cat, and you got to every man the man motivated to save his family. Everybody like that show. I think I'm going to refuse. I'm going to continue not to watch Yellowstone. He's like, it's just a man that loves his family. He's got to look after him. But he like murders people and shit. Like, the fuck are we doing? Like, anyway, what I'm saying? But people tie into like, and I've seen that. Oh, well, like, the women are like this and the men are like that, and like I can understand that, right? And so, I dig it. The notions in art, right? Then the subtle things that then are referencing, like, what are our ideas about the world? What do we think is supposed to be going on? How do we live? And for some of our beats, and then especially the beats that become a part of our pathway when you, as I say, come into the knowledge of yourself, when you go into understanding sort of us as the generation that was born in the wake of the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, and the sort of the revival of Black art and culture, and then like Black nationalism, as it pertained like cultural nationalism and practice, and then like that whole our age. We have, if you were whenever and it wasn't necessarily in the 80s, but I guess we'll say like when we got to our like double digit ages or teens, and then either you went further in to like super Blackness, like finding yourself and doing your thing, and inspired by like Malcolm X, and then transmuted to maybe Public Enemy and Rakim and social conscious and music or whatever, and then these other things, and you got involved in maybe the dialogue around apartheid being the modern equivalent to right. So you're going to a Dune Day, you going to the Kwanzaa joints, you still in that world. And then there was other Black people that was like, all right, y'all be cool. I ain't coming to all that. I ain't coming to that stuff, right? And then you had in terms of our community, like our community paradigm, right? And then other communities going like, oh no, it's the 80s, like we over that civil struggle stuff of the 60s and 70s. Now it's about we all gonna get money together, like just work hard and like merit based and go get a degree, right? So we get to this point now where some people don't have the threads, right? It's like when we did
the stories, yeah.
Like when we did a community, John, and some of the kids here had never been to a function where people did a libation before, and and like you could be mad or judgmental about that if you've been to that space. Then it's like, oh wait, all right, I mean everybody wasn't doing that, right? Everywhere that wasn't necessarily a strategy for reaffirming values, right? So how do we wrestle with that? To have a movie that, and where that relates to me is that you get in the discussion and trying to understand the past, right, is always also about the present, right? Because you're like, sometimes folks are energized in their curiosity because they're like trying to find the origin of something, or they're like, well, why would somebody say that, or why would this happen? And you can really start to have wait, so that's what it looked like like there's one of the interview on the Breakfast Show, Ryan Coogler talks about being in, I think they were shooting Black Panther 2 and driving by a cotton field and realizing he ain't never really seen one, right? Theoretically, your family, where they from, worked by a cotton field, but until you go stand by one, you don't think about, wait a minute, what the fuck does it feel like to be in a cotton field? If your people's told you, you had experience of, being from West Philly, but your pop's telling you about North Carolina and going to North Carolina as a kid. Me too. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never been to North Carolina as with my physical family that's from there, but I know it existed at some point. My mom can tell me those stories, but my endpoint only goes to like going to Hampton's campus once or twice as a very young child. And then after that, it's Busch Gardens and shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Going
oh man, that was a good one.
Going to DC. It's going to.
I like what you did there, Josh.
Yeah, I did that. You know what I'm saying? It's going to black cities.
That was some Delaware. That was some East Coast. It wasn't just Delaware Valley because the dudes from DC, people from DC went to Busch Gardens.
Yeah, I'm saying about Busch Gardens, right? So the reference points to know your recent past, not just a distant past, to put some color to, again, now this sits in that window. If somebody want to, any number of movies that are set in the Jim Crow era window, now you got to deal with these ideas when you look at those movies. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about what they've created. I could go deeper and go on.
Can I just jump on? I want to say two things. I know, but like, thank you for saying it, because again, I think the thread that we're talking about is the stories we tell ourselves, and how the stories we tell ourselves sometimes combat history as it actually existed. And we're getting more comfortable as a collective, not anybody in particular, not the YNs or whatever. Everyone's getting comfortable with believing only the stories they tell themselves. And the challenge with that is you don't have to, as you said, wrestle with history. And it doesn't mean that you have to like take the burden, but you have to know that it existed. And the agency of Black men and women, the uniqueness of, we didn't just start getting, real light-skinned people in our families. We didn't just start getting folks that quote unquote could pass, right? Like that's not something that we were only grappling with since the 70s.
Right.
And who football players marry, rappers, right? That's how we want to frame it. Like, that only started to matter in the 70s because Black is beautiful. Like, we've always been engaged, and people have always been dealing with that, especially in the South, right? Because of the unique history of slavery, right? And then post-slavery, but still neo-slavery of Jim Crow and sharecropping, and how we make sure that our young people, our communities, are not disconnected from the stories that don't feel good. Right? Like, I think a lot of times about Frederick Douglass, right? And I say that to, like, when you start to think about Frederick Douglass did all this shit, he was eventually like America's diplomat to Haiti. Right? Like, the range from going from him to be born in Baltimore on the Eastern Shore and doing all that to being America's diplomat to Haiti. It's like, what? Like, how did you? And again, so we think about, oh man, anything that happened in America, a Black man can be president. Frederick Douglass went from being a slave to America's diplomat to Haiti. There is nothing in America that's happened that big, and especially in the 1800s.
Right.
Right. Like, and so, but when we miss that history, we miss and we lose the agency. It's kind of like we were talking about Black founders, right? I know that book is probably like, we go ahead to have like 3 episodes to talk about Black founders.
Yeah. That might be the subject matter of a pending live discussion.
Yeah, like that one, that's big. But I just wanted to note that, like, and even in music, and I'll say this real quick before I go to just one book I want to make sure folks know. Even when we start kind of talking about this around like hip hop and stuff like that, sometimes, or R&B, and I'll use Kendrick and SZA's Luther. I mean, there's so many people who've never heard the original. You could think that was their song. And then for a lot of people who think that the Luther version is the original, and Cheryl Lynn, I want to make sure we say that, because sometimes we just with Luther, like Luther starts to like take over everything. Like Luther's like LeBron. We just don't say nobody else has with him. That it was a Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell song first. So the history gets so lost, we start to frame it only what we experience. And when you have a people who only can define themselves by what they experience, you get a lot of stuff we're dealing with politics today. Because the only experience is the right now experience. Like, if you haven't seen it before, you don't know how the story goes. But if you know the history of how the story goes, then you have a decision tree of what you do versus, oh man, I don't know what to do now. I guess I just deal with it, right? The book that I wanted to share that I think goes into really interesting parts around food and Southern foodways and the central role of Africans but central but not exclusive role of Black people in Southern foodways, called the Pot Liquor Papers. It was written by John T. Edge. So for folks who really want just a kind of an entryway into the complexities of the South's role in vegetarianism, Black women, and the whole history of like the economics around the civil rights movement and so much more in tamales and meat plus threes. It really goes into it.
All right. Oh yeah. So I mean, while it's the theaters, I'm trying to go watch it again on an IMAX theater because I went on a big screen, but it wasn't an IMAX. That's because the other thing is he did like intentional like dope creatives. Like it's like you did like the story is dope story, but he also did like cool film stuff, and it's like big. What I mean, it's like a lot of layers. So
he's an auteur, and I just want I think people should just know that like this isn't just like the dude that did Creed. Like this is one of the biggest directors in the world now, right? Like. And we should be able to sit with that, like a dude from Oakland, right?
Who's a very Oakland dude.
Very Oakland. Extremely basic. Extremely basic.
And I love it.
You know what I mean? Like no cut, no cards.
Yeah.
Has become one of the most bankable directors in the world, along with a black like main figure who has also become one of these people. And again, we just need America to sit with that. We need the world to sit with that. Yeah. That it not just in the things y'all think that black people are good at, like sports, which I guess is a good
segue to wrap our discussion today. You know what I mean? The other, like I say, monumental event that happened in the same week, actually, oddly enough, it was the NFL draft. Where the most capitalist economic entity in America gets real socialist for like a couple of days when it comes to labor distribution.
we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that. And I say that because there's a couple podcasts we tried, what's the homie's name with the podcast is really long that we've talked about, Acquired. Acquired defined the NFL as the perfect match of capitalism and communism.
Absolutely.
Like it is like when you have something that's as capitalist as all get out, and it is actually as communist as all get out too, right? Of how they do it, how they figure it out, and the shield is the shield. Like So I was listening to actually one of their episodes on Indian League cricket, which actually might be the craziest sport in the world.
Cricket is wild.
But they were talking about like, the NFL is this perfect match. So
So every year, for those that don't know, the players that are eligible to join the league are drafted, meaning every team gets a pick, they get ranked. With the worst record to the best record, meaning the team that won the Super Bowl picks last, the team with the worst record at the start of the end of the season picks first in the descending order, and they get first basically dibs to select the players that are coming in. There's a whole very complicated ranking activity that goes on with scouts. There's these things called mock drafts, which are a big part of what happens here, which are a mix sometimes of journalists giving their interpretation based on what they're hearing, right, from teams, what they're able to pick up around like who's ranked where, who thinks the best player, blah, blah, blah. Same as the NBA draft, similar to at the baseball draft, which is much less. Nobody knows baseball players, except for people that's really into baseball. Same thing with hockey, right? Hockey does draft. All your major sports do a draft for the most part. So with that,
except soccer. But I guess that's
then that's we gotta have like a longer conversation about that because there is a thing there with international because of the context of the world that it was born out of. Which, So Sheduer Sanders, the son of, I don't know if he's the oldest son. I think he just was one of the two sons of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. Was and I would say before this season and during the season considered maybe the second one of the best college quarterback prospects coming out. Again, and this may be time wasted on people that may know these things, but I'm just in case there's somebody listening that doesn't. In football, people tend to know and have an idea beforehand, like who are the quarterbacks that look like, because quarterback's the most important position. Quarterbacks get picked earlier than everybody else. If you have a high pick and a quarterback looks like they could be a real NFL starter, they get picked usually in the top 10 If not, they may take a risk. Somebody that like could be a starter, but you're not sure in the back 20. But usually in the first 2 rounds, you're picking that quarterback because you think that they are good enough to start now or good enough to probably start eventually, or at least give them a shot. Like it's worth the risk. So, Sheduer Sanders, by many mock drafts throughout the process, with the transfer to Colorado from Jackson State with his father and then the whole team, he moved up the charts, and many felt, or at least was presented as if he was likely to be one of the first 2 quarterbacks picked. For my own opinion, I think he is the second best quarterback of the quarterbacks available, especially in what he's demonstrated and whatever the fuck I know about. I've watched football a lot. So I don't mean doesn't mean I'm right. Just mean that's what I think. But basically, belaboring the point, it didn't go the way it was that they thought it was. When I say they, Sheduer, his father, and all of us as Black America, as there was a national crisis of epic proportions and notes of collusion and all sorts of things. And they're trying to break this man's spirit and all these various things because he did not get drafted as early as it was suspected he would get drafted or proposed. He did not. He ended up actually, which I thought got really weird, getting drafted like in the 5th round after a couple quarterbacks who I was thinking he's better than or would be better than. There's some other there's some things we can get into about this, but the thing that was most salient to me was sort of watching as people. The number 1 overall quarterback was a Black man named Cam Ward. There's video of him and Sheduer. They train together. Depending on how you look at that video, there's things that happen in the video. You be like, man, Cam seems much more quarterbacky. No disrespect to Sheduer, but just keeping it a buck. Like, he got the swagger and the mojo and all that. You know what I'm saying? Sheduer, he kind of like cool and mellow. And to his credit, like I said, everybody got to be who they are, right? So you can't fake who you are. Like if you ain't a dude that's gonna handle it that way, you ain't got to act like that. You are. But in any event, yeah, like the number 1, and then it was like they're trying to destroy the Black man, and they're trying to punish his dad, and all of these like things, and it was tough watching because I'm like, well, hold up, y'all, like it's weird. I ain't saying it's not weird that he went as far as he went.
Thank you.
But then our analysis,
we need to have this conversation,
right? Because our analysis gets to this really weird spot, and I'll wait to say I got a couple people I could point to who I think have given very good framing of what happened here. But yeah, I just want to hear from you. What was some of your thoughts as this was unrolling over our national nightmare of the weekend of Sheduer Sanders, not getting the, and there's everything. Like what's some of the things that popped up for you with it?
Let me start with a charge statement. Let me start with one. There are Black children in certain schools that can't read, who don't read as well as they should, who are being prepared for a world that no longer exists, being prepared for a world that maybe should not exist. Black maternal mortality is usually 1/2 or 2x to 2x flip side inverse. Mm-hmm. It's usually 2x white mortality. EPA is being destroyed, and Black people live close to factories and sludge and shit. Racism is so wild, you will forget what matters and focus on what does not. And I am here to tell everyone, it does not matter where Sheduer Sanders goes to play football. And if you think, and I want to go back to your point about NFL being the perfect example of capitalism and communism or socialism, however, not that they're the same, folks. I just want to make a note because they're not the same. Mike Vick, who had served time for dogfighting, he was one of the most electrifying quarterbacks in the country. he went to jail, and he came back and he got a job. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes it right, because he went to jail and then came back and the Steelers got him, the Eagles got him, right?
Yep.
Football teams hire talented people. You got to be Antonio Brown crazy to not get a job.
And he had a job till he just
and he
till his talent no longer met his crazy
Raiders. Who always take chances on people no one should take chances on. That's how the Raiders are built. Al Davis was built on that. The Outcasts, right?
Absolutely.
We were built on taking people nobody else wanted. The Pirates, man. We were the Pirates of the league. So my point is, if NFL teams have had a history of taking really challenged situations, do you think that at one point they all conspired to destroy Deion Sanders? Do you think teams would actually harm their possibilities of winning
to stick it to Deion?
To harm Deion Sanders, a person that's not coming to the pros?
Yeah.
Do you think that people went to live to destroy him while the first guy that was taken was Cam Ward? By the last time I checked, the black quarterback. The second person that was taken was his teammate. The third person that was taken, and shout to y'all for getting Abdul Carter, man. Y'all got a
so
dog.
excited. So excited.
Y'all got a dog.
I can't wait. Well, I'll say that for later because there's very Philly family there. It was
very.
I'm with this. I'm with this.
Y'all got your hide. No, y'all didn't get your hide.
Nah, the Eagles got your hide, Campbell.
Yeah, we need to do a what's the name on how Philadelphia discovered football.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't even know where that happened. But we talking about
late 90s.
Late 90s.
Mid to late 90s, actually, weirdly enough. So you think of all this stuff, and every team is harming themselves just to give the finger to Deion Sanders?
If there's anybody on earth who don't care if you give him the finger, it's Deion Sanders.
Like what?
Ain't enough fingers on enough hands for Deion to skip a beat to care about you trying to take a dig at him. If that's like, yeah, we're gonna show Deion, we're gonna take him down a peg. Really? Deion Sanders? There's no pegs to take down on Deion Sanders.
Like, dude, does anyone think that Deion Sanders is now sitting to like, man, I feel bad about myself?
Yeah,
he make all kind of mistakes. He's like, I made a mistake. I don't care. Life goes on.
Right.
I said it in jest, but for real, one of the challenging and beguiling things about racism is it forces you to focus on spectacle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it leaves behind systems. So you take the spectacle of things, whether it be Colin Kaepernick, whether it be Sheduer Sanders, and you forget like the systems of things in the NFL that do conspire to harm people, like not getting CTE assistance and them being broke after 6 years. And there's a whole host of stuff you could think about. But you think about these examples of like, maybe he just didn't match. And maybe, listen, I'm going to go to a Browns game this year. You know what I mean? The Cleveland Browns, they can't get much tougher for them. They need a new stadium. They got Joe Flacco.
They got Joe Flacco.
Kenny Pickett of all time for people. Like, but guess what? I'm going to a Browns game for the idea that he might play. Right? So I just think, like, to your point, one of the things about the awareness and keeping, being hyper aware, being aware but not hyper vigilant. Mm-hmm. And I think we got so into like being hyper vigilant about Deion Sanders' son playing football that we forgot that like there are a lot of people who know football and like they made a decision. Mm. And yes, is he better than Jackson Dart? We'll see. Listen, Tom Brady went in the 5th round, man. Not everybody gets it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he's fine. He's a soldier. He went right to start dealing with the kids, right? Like he knows what to do. He'll be fine. But the bigger problem is when you see things that don't have to be examples of collusion and racism and call them collusion and racism, when clear collusion and racism and classism starts to take place, you can't talk about it no more.
Right. You don't understand. You can't see it, right? Because you lose the plot. Like you lose the pitch point, right? The idea that America somehow has become that racism was about the idiosyncratic attack on the personal character of Black people, as opposed to the outright control and back. Like, you know what I'm saying? And like every time somebody like, yeah, they putting this in the water to do the food supply. Yo, dog, they used to lynch people. There was no covert nature to this, because we don't talk about it no more, right?
Right. No,
we don't. We do all this stuff in hushed tones and like, well, there's like a history with the relationship with law enforcement. Because we have an active memory of the deployment of law enforcement being to beat us up and tell us not to go to certain parts of town, or understand you will face extrajudicial violence to go back to the other part of town. Right? We have that salient memory right there. Other people are like, well, hush tones. I don't understand. Sometimes there's a relationship and woo. There are sundown towns in this state where I live in Oregon. There's sundown towns in a lot of states. There's states there's multiple places I've seen in the last couple of years of people talk about certain roads, like the curtain towns. If you drove from Houston to New Orleans or Houston to the other parts of the Gulf, it's like, oh, you stopped where? Hey, brother, don't you stop and get gas in that town. When I tell people about the Maryland house versus the Chesapeake house, I'm like, Justice, how could that be? Listen, we once stopped at the Chesapeake house, and it was absolutely like, the fuck y'all doing here? Y'all know y'all ain't supposed to stop at the Chesapeake house.
Everybody black when you stopped at the Maryland house.
And it was the 80s. Like, these are not foreign memories to us. We'll reference it our earlier topic matter. So to get to this moment with the brother, and sure, I'm sure there's somebody, and if you go by the idiots in the comments, yes, idiots in the comments are like, yeah, man, take him down a notch, let him know what it is. People who ain't in charge of nothing. You don't listen to people who are not in charge of stuff's opinions on stuff that people are actually in charge of stuff. And them people that they in the comments with you. Y'all all over there in the fools gallery.
That's why you said, and I said to somebody last week on a panel, man, it's a psyop, man. The comments are a psyop, man.
It's like, get out of there.
Yeah, you got to get out the comments, man. It gets you twisted, and it also brings to bear. And this is agency, and however it went for them on agency, that's the thing about agency. You take agency. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it was agency nonetheless. He went in places and bombed on interviews. And we can't confuse that he didn't know he was bombing on their interview.
Yeah.
He knew he wasn't. His father told people, I don't know if you want to go there, man. We might have to pull an Eli Manning. Now, could that be the reason? That's like you going to a school and telling the teachers, oh, man, my son getting, man, it's going to be hell up in Harlem.
Everybody get a new teacher up in here.
You can't wait to see your son? Do you think that the principal can't wait to see him when you have come in and told them that your son is hell on wheels? Not somebody else, you.
Yeah. My baby needs a little bit more attention.
Can't tell him, but listen, man, I'm telling you, he get it, man. You're gonna be hanging off the rafters, Jack. Like, yeah. So could someone think about it? And it also brought up this one idea that I don't know, your take on this, but the backup quarterback conundrum. Mm-hmm. Meaning, you don't want your backup quarterback, and this is kind of like really industrial like psychology. Do you want the person that's backing up somebody else to be the person that gets all the attention? Because good, bad, or indifferent, you have a quarterback, the most important person on the team, and then the person that gets the most attention is the person that's sitting on the bench.
Yeah. I mean, the analogy I was thinking about would be like to kind of pull it over to another. If you think of the quarterback as the face or the head of the corporate entity, or whomever, whomever the starter on the team that is the point person. Because some teams, it's total teams where the quarterback ain't the leader. Like, I mean, Deion Sanders was a dude who basically was the leader in the face of the franchise from the furthest away from the football you can be, right? Which is amazing, which is why he's Deion, right? That's why he's unconfounded, just like a spaceman, because he was able to be that and set the entire tone for the team and what decisions we're making and how you engage with us. If the CEO, let's go with a public figure. If the mayor of the city, any city, especially a big city, and something needs to be said, and the mayor can't really talk, so you always got to talk to like the head of the so-and-so department or the deputy, so like some other person. And some people start looking over there and be like, mayor ain't shit.
There's a crisis.
Like, why we always got to go talk to the deputy chief or the such and such or the third person over here or the head of this other. Hey man, you supposed to be the captain around here. You know what I'm saying? And, even in the context of the NFL as mirroring like a corporate entity, if the CEO can't ever speak up for the organization, right now, as a person that also listens to Acquired, and at a large super company, there may be a couple people, right, who are figureheads high up in the operation, right, and somebody may be the person that is more their style to be a spokesperson, right, and then we understand that other. But at some point, if the media is going, hey, what's going on? Where's Sheduer at? Sure, doing okay. Sure, like that becomes a job for the team to be like, nah, man. First, because most teams they don't let the quarterback. Nobody gets to talk besides certain people. Like there's a person that's job is to go, you get to talk, and you get to talk this week. Rest of y'all, go ahead and hit the showers. We'll see you next time.
say what you will. The Philadelphia Eagles, you talk to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman.
Yep.
That's it.
Like
you don't get to talk to nobody else.
You get a couple.
You don't get to talk to the director of operations. And you don't want to be a problem that the director of operations is the best director, but you don't never get to hear from him. So then the first media conversation is always, so when are we going to get to talk to the director of operations? Do we know if he's going to be able to come out and talk? What? You're going to cause chaos. And so if you just, the framing of it, I think at the end of the day ended up not well. We can argue however much money he may have not gotten on his rookie contract.
He's never taking a hit to his pocket. He's taking a hard hit to the pocket.
It's going to cost him a couple $1 million, right? Yeah. And I don't want to not say I don't want to go to NIL, but he already got money because that's some other shit. Like, he already got money. No, it took a couple $1 million out of his pocket. Yeah. But he gets to go somewhere, actually work for a job. You know what I mean? Like his brother got picked up by the Buccaneers. Yeah. His pop goes on and hopefully wins. And it's fine. Like, again, the idea of like the crooked collusion that you have about the NFL trying to break a buck. Like, you're comparing it to when people were physically harmed and destroyed.
Yeah.
You're comparing Breaker Islands. Like, these are not superfluous comparisons.
Yeah, they're not. They shouldn't be made.
They should not be superfluous comparisons. It's similar like when we be like, oh man, I'm just out here I'm out here, food trapping. No, you're not. You're selling stuff out of a truck. Them are in there and they can go to jail at any moment or be robbed by other hustlers. They are trapping. Right. It is a thing.
Yeah, anybody come and steal your box lunches that you made or the plates that you got in the warmer.
There's no one that literally could come and change your life and put you in jail. Like, you're not trapping. So in the same way, again, when we get really comfortable with these making like the corollaries, we actually downplay the power of something that happened before. Yeah. And kind of going back to that story. Don't downplay the story that happened some before because you want it to be amenable to your current conditions.
Yeah. And it's the, and I'll just leave it with this. Like, I understand the feeling in the moment. I understand the like disappointment. And I want to give to his credit, his handling of the whole thing was, hey man, you kept, not to say that he got a smile if you ain't happy, but he didn't like come out with a damn Twitter rant or something like, y'all don't understand how good I am. You could. He said, hey man, that's how they see me. That's cool. Like I would dig it out. They celebrate it. Yeah, they was thankful for his opportunity, right? Like it wasn't like the characterization of him. And this is where I get like, which gets to where like you got to sometimes decide to just there's certain voices you just don't need to listen to. Same as stay out the comments, right? Is there's people that have opinions and perspectives of him that are just not founded on nothing. They're founded on their notions of either contextual frontline or subtext disrespect of black men and black people. Right. And he got a chain on, or he smiles like this, or he looks like that. The aspect of coming from a family, definitely a privileged family. You come from a wealthy experience. You definitely never had to make steakums unless that's what y'all was eating.
That was another good one, Just. You've been killing on the references.
Yeah, man.
That's Saturday. That's steakum, man. I don't know what it was made of, Jack, but that's steakum.
Yeah, I've heard. We'll get in that another day. I've heard some bad things. At least whatever says steakum now. I ain't know niggas was still eating steakum, but apparently they are. You know what I'm saying? The whatever he's got going on is like, the prank call foolishness. Like, you know what I'm saying? He stayed above board on that. Like he ain't go into no sunken place, no crazy spot. He sees, the really, young man want to play football, and he's gonna have the opportunity. I think he's gonna, I think Kenny Pickett, you might as well. One of y'all ain't gonna make it. It's probably you, Kenny. You and Dylan Gabriel, but they may be able to keep the two young fellas, and and the nasty man, he ain't gonna get to play. That's Deshaun Watson. His time is over. Nasty. So like he's. As demonstrated,
he's the Bobby Bonilla of football. Guaranteed cash. Never has to work again a day in his life, and probably won't. So.
That's easy what to be. But we sometimes, like I said, in our, I think is this. I would like us to take a beat and take a bump, take a step back, and look at like. Something could be painful. It could be disappointing. It could be hurtful to the person experiencing it. And definitely in this, like I said, if you didn't know and you're not really a person that's in the mix, like this can happen to anybody. If when there's a mismatch of what you think you are, what other folks are saying about you, and then what the people who you are looking to let you in is probably a strong word, but that you need to engage with to make another move. They're gonna tell you the truth how they actually perceive you, and when they don't invite you to the thing, they don't invite you to the event. They don't have you on the guys. There's a call to make a move, decision about something. And you're like, man, why ain't nobody invite me? Right now, sometimes it might be a technical oversight. You know what I mean? Maybe a number of things, but also it might just be like they decided that you wasn't the one for their purposes. That doesn't mean that you need to agree with them or that they're right. It just means that's what is.
Right.
And in this circumstance, again, the idea that someone who actually lost their career, due to their social stance is equated with that being Colin Kaepernick and what Sheduer experienced getting picked later than he was supposed to get picked, but still getting picked. Like ultimately still getting picked. Like he's going to have a chance to show and prove that he can be on an NFL team, and all of this will be in the past. You know what I'm saying? And I am gonna belabor for just one more beat. I really would like us to be a little to be okay in the moment, going like, I can feel bad for and empathize with Sheduer's experience without necessarily saying like, yeah, they try to take him out, like they assassinate the character of the black man. You know what I'm saying? While, like I said, not only that the first quarterback was a black man, but like the first three players was all black men from families. You know what I mean? Was standing like there's black men all over the NFL draft, like everywhere. Like literally everywhere. And then to make the assumption that like he is the only one who has this glowing confidence and startling character that stands out beyond the pit. Like, and I'm excited about Abdul Carter, and I can't wait for him to fly around and smash on somebody. You know, he called Lawrence Taylor and asked could he unretire the number. The size of the wildness of the, like, brother, I guess it can't hurt the ass, but for this generation, like, hey, some things though might hurt the ass, man. Leave that alone. Like,
I mean, I do think there is. I think if anything we want to talk about, I think there's a generational context of either these guys have been good for a long time, or like in Sheduer sense, like you've been around the NFL for a long time. So there is a degree of like, I belong, right?
Yeah.
Like, and Abdul Carter doesn't come from that, but he still thought, hey, I'm Abdul Carter. Give me 56.
Third pick. What's up with it? Like,
and LT was like, dog, make your own number. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't ever retire this 5'6", baby. And again, I think that's a part of like, okay, you're coming and saying this. Maybe you should wait and like become rookie of the year. Like, and guess what? If you become rookie of the year, you're going to want your own number.
Yeah.
You're not going to want LT's number. You ain't going to want Carl Banks' number. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to want none of them guys' number. You want to be you.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be careful where we're blaming things on, and race is obviously the salient challenge of our time. But that doesn't mean that always, right? It can be that, like, again, agency. Because if everything is racism, then at some point, nothing is racism. And what I mean by that is this. If everything is this, then nothing is this, because you can't even pull out the salient concepts. You can't go, you should look at that because that means something. Mm-hmm. Because we all go, okay, well, that's what it is now, right? And it's like, no, that is still a salient element. Don't get me wrong. But like, because he likes to wear chains and say he was legendary already. Well, I mean, here's a question: were you legendary? You didn't win a national championship. Like, I don't know. Legendary is a tough one. Like, like Travis Hunter is kind of legendary. Like, he played both ways. Like,
yeah, I mean,
that's
got a good run here, but I don't know. Legendary might be a little strong.
Yeah, like okay.
But and I'll leave this be my final beat. I would say, I would appreciate folks that's understood, like, one, making it to the NFL is hard. And it's, and I don't want to. So even being a fifth round pick for anybody. Look, Shiloh didn't get drafted. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no guarantees. I mean, I would say it's in some ways harder and less harder than, some of like the sons of former NBA greats have the least, as was framed to me, the statistical advantage of probably being so gigantically tall that you got a good shot of making the league because you're going to be 6'7", 6'8", like your pops was, right? Which is not the same thing. You could be in range of your pops as a 6'1", 6 foot, whatever person, but you just may not be the athlete for whatever number of reasons that they were. But to be that tall, it's a little different in terms of the opportunity to at least get into the game if you play. Let Sheduer and let other young men and young women, young folks in general have their get their experience or their like lessons they need to learn by being in the thing that they're doing, as opposed to us assigning that if there was something within his character that needed to be adjusted, allow him to have those same bumps that you had. Because even though you existed and experienced a racist oppressive system that, shaded, formed, limited, boxed in, or directed some of your opportunities or perceived opportunities, you still also took steps and things to figure out who you are, where you are, what you do in the world, and make your own wave, despite what other people's expectations are for you. So, let Sheduer, make his moves. If he, overcomes all the odds, becomes starter of the Cleveland Browns, the Maury-bound Browns, and has a great 5-6 year run, you know what I'm saying? He will be a legend because the Browns stink historically. They can't get, what I mean? Like I said, I got to, and I'll say this for Justice Solo rant, I have a very basic concept. People, poo-poo my man Eli. I love Eli. Y'all can all kiss my ass. But and he doesn't need to be a Hall of Famer. That's fine. But if he had the same career he had in New York, in Cleveland, he would be a folk hero. They would talk about him riding in on the West and like he came down to Cuyahoga and slayed the dragon twice. Like he would be.
Oh, that's real.
But he played in New York, and it's not perceived that way, even with his goofy face. Right. So context matters with this stuff. Sheduer overcomes the odds of being a 5th round pick. Again, he shouldn't have been a 5th round pick. In other, I think he's better than that. But if he beats the people in front of him, gets handed the wheel, has a good run. Maybe play off a couple playoff games, you know what I'm saying? Some feisty battles with Lamar Jackson and the Steelers and beat Joe Burrow a couple times. And for y'all, for the record, now it's turning to Justice Football Talk. Joe Burrow's probably never going to play in another Super Bowl again, just in case y'all think it's that easy. We'll be like, yo, Sheduer, man, fucking great job, bro. Way to do that. Way to do your thing. And like, let's save the collusion for like, the fact that we draft players instead of having an open free agent process where people have to actually pay on the front end. Right. Let's save collusion for there's some other places for collusion that do not involve, not picking a quarterback in the, till later in the 5th round. So yeah. Shout out to them. One love to the Sanders family. You know what I'm saying? All right. So anything for good at order?
Order is good.
All right. So with that, we're going to say peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, I'm Majestic. Good Brothers is these good brothers soon to come. It's here on the Ask Your Oldhead feed for the audio. But on this one, there's a test flight, as they say. So go to YouTube, Ask Your Oldhead YouTube page, and watch us in video for the first time. You know what I'm saying? Just little trial balloons, a little austere, you know what I'm saying? But, it's about expansion and understanding. You know what I mean? So just take the best part for yourself. Don't be a weirdo. You know what I'm saying? And, we talk about sinners, same content, but it's in a different form. Anyway, man, you get the idea, man. So I appreciate you. Do all the stuff. Peace.